Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant evening to you all, and welcome to the opening ceremony of the Chief Justices and Heads of Judiciaries of the Caribbean Conference 2024. Please join me in welcoming our Chief Justices as they enter the room in the order of procession. And we start with All right. So the Silver Bird Steel Orchestra is one of the prize jewels of Jamaica when it comes to entertainment, particularly in our tourism industry. And I know they've been entertaining you a bit on the outside. We're going to get a little bit more from Silver Bird before we begin with our order of procession. So ladies and gentlemen, here they are, the Silver Bird Steel Orchestra. How beautiful. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel all right. I invite you now to stand, ladies and gentlemen, for the official order of procession. And so first, we welcome from the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the Honorable Mr. Justice Sir Ian Winder, Chief Justice of Bahamas. From the Republic of Barbados, the Honorable Mr. Justice Leslie Francis Haynes, SC, Chief Justice of Barbados. From Belize, the Honorable Madame Louise Esther Blenman, Chief Justice of Belize. From the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, the Honorable Madame Justice Yonette Cummings Edwards, OR, CHH, Chancellor of the Judiciary of Guyana. From the Republic of Suriname, Senior Judge Dinesh Siratan, Deputy Member representing the President of the Court of Justice for Suriname, the Honorable Mr. Justice Iwan Rassolbaks. From the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Mr. Justice Ivor Archie, ORTT, Chief Justice of Trinidad and Tobago. Joining us later this evening due to a delay in her flight from the Turks and Caicos Islands, Her Ladyship, Chief Justice Mabel Ajimang, Chief Justice of Turks and Caicos Island. Joining us tomorrow, the Honorable Mr. Larry Mussenden, Chief Justice of Bermuda. From the Caribbean Court of Justice, the Honorable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice. From the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, His Lordship, the Honorable Justice Mario Michel, Acting Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. And from Jamaica, the Honorable Mr. Justice Brian Sykes, OJCD, Chief Justice of Jamaica. And in case you missed it, he's representing Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to stand with me as the Silverbird Steel Orchestra plays the national anthem of Jamaica. Please remain standing as I invite the Honorable Mr. Justice David Fraser, CD, Judge of Appeal, to offer prayer.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we adore you and magnify your holy name. We give you thanks for the verdant hills, lush savannas, cool rivers, and warm seas of this, our Caribbean region. We thank you that we all enjoy the privilege of self-determination as citizens of independent countries. We gather, Father, for this conference of regional chief justices and heads of judiciaries of the Caribbean, a forum in which Caribbean judicial leaders will interrogate their role as heads of the independent, co-equal arm of democratic governance in our several countries in an ever-changing environment. We ask for the blessings of your wisdom, guidance, creativity, and strength on these, our leaders. Grant them fresh insights that yield solutions, deepen bonds of amity and understanding. Overall, Father, God of justice, may the outcomes of this important conference, from this opening ceremony onwards, redound in ever-increasing measure to the benefit of all who access justice services in the Caribbean and to your greater glory. For we pray in and through the mighty and matchless name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Thank you very much, Justice. You may be seated. The Honorable Delroy Chuck, KC, MP, Minister of Justice, representing the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, ON, PC, MP, Prime Minister of Jamaica. Senator the Honorable Dr. Dana Morris Dixon, Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister for Information, Skills, and Digital Transformation. Chief Justices and heads of judiciaries of the Caribbean and spouses who are in attendance. The Honorable Mr. Justice Patrick Brooks, President of the Court of Appeal Jamaica, and Mrs. Brooks. The Honorable Mrs. Justice Zayla McCalla, Chief Justice retired. Dr. Derek McCoy, CD, KC, Attorney General of Jamaica. Her Excellency, Miss Judith Slater, British High Commissioner to Jamaica. Ms. Howie Tilahuni, representing the U.S. Ambassador to Jamaica, His Excellency Noah Nicholas Perry. His Excellency Derek Murray, High Commissioner for the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to Jamaica. Mr. Winston Bailey, Honorary Consul for Barbados to Jamaica. Judges of the Court of Appeal, judges of the Supreme Court, Ambassador Alison Stone Roof, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Mrs. Grace Ann Stewart McFarlane, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice, Mrs. Tricia Cameron Anglin, Director, CEO of Court Administration, the Assistant Commissioner of Police, Clifford Chambers, representing the Commissioner of Police, Dr. Kevin Blake, ODPSC. His Honor, Mr. Chester Crooks, Chief Judge of the Parish Courts, judges of the Parish Courts, other specially invited guests, members of staff from the Judiciary, media. A pleasant evening to you all, or as I like to say, howdy do. Howdy do? How no do? You're fine. Bless you. It's an honor for me to host such an auspicious occasion. You know, many of us keep our eyes and our ears tuned to what happens in the courts because our contribution really is just to dialogue about it. We have no legal groundings or background in what we say. We just say it with a lot of passion. I was speaking to a lady the other day and she was giving me her view on the Privy Council's ruling on that very popular case with an entertainer of ours, and she said, Delia, the thing that upset me the most is that the people them said the ruling is quashi. And quashi is the worst thing you could have ever call a Jamaican person. And I said, quashi? Where did you hear that? And she said, up on the radio. Me hear it. So me said, I said, you sure you never heard quash it? And she said, quashi, quash it. And she laughed and she said, Lord, look how deaf he is, I had trouble. So I have a lot of respect for the judiciary and what you managed to accomplish here in the Caribbean. We really cannot be the great region we are without you. And so it is my pleasure to be here this afternoon. But to deliver the official welcome, please join me in inviting the Honorable Mr. Justice Brian Sykes, OJ, CD, Chief Justice of Jamaica.
Let me thank the Master of Ceremonies for establishing the protocol of that rather long protocol list, and I will simply say that I adopt the precedent that she has laid down, and I won't attempt to repeat it. It is my distinct honor to welcome all of you, my colleague Chief Justices from around the region, to Kingston, Jamaica at this conference. It's good to see many of my colleagues here at the different levels of our courts, and also former members of our courts. Justice Hilary Phillips, I see there. I see the President of the Bar Association, and I am looking to see whether I see anybody else from the legal profession that I think they are here. I might not be seeing them at the moment. So the heads of judiciaries at the 5th Conference of the Commonwealth Heads of Judiciaries Conference held in Palm Island, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You will know that that is the home of the current president of the Caribbean Court of Justice. On the 8th of June, reaffirmed in the preamble of the Constitution the following: aware of the importance of an efficient and adequate system of justice in promoting social stability for the people of the Caribbean community and the common market, and in enhancing the operations of the Caribbean Court of Justice and the Caribbean single market and economy. Recognizing the merits of a regional association in seeking to enhance the systems of justice in those states, convinced that the establishment of a regional association to promote and facilitate closer cooperation among the judiciaries in those states will facilitate the achievement of these aims. They adopted a constitution at its 6th conference held in Cape-Chapel, Belize in September 2003, that is September 20. And in that, there is an important Article 3, which sets out the objectives of the Conference of Heads of Judiciaries and the Chief Justices. Is to provide a forum for the promotion of fellowship, understanding, and functional cooperation for the enhancement of the administration of justice within the jurisdiction of each member state and associate state, to contribute to the development of mechanisms for harmonizing judicial approaches to the Caribbean single market and economy, examine judicial problems, whether of a national or regional nature, and to arrive at better solutions for them, encourage, foster, and promote the development of a Caribbean jurisprudence, establish links with similar organizations of heads of judiciaries in other parts of the world. And it is in this context that we're meeting here in Jamaica. I use this opportunity to welcome our new Chief Justices, those who have been recently appointed. This is Haynes from Barbados, and the OECS, Justice Marcel from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, also from Bermuda, who is not yet here, Justice Mossenden, and some of us are a bit long in the tooth, but we welcome we call him a relatively new Chief Justice, Sir Ian Winder from the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. So for those of us who have been around for some time, such as myself, Justice Archie, and Jonathan Cummings, the Chancellor of Guyana, and thereabouts, the Chief Justice from Belize, and of course President Saunders, who has been President of the CCJ for the past 7 years. So what we hope to do in this organization is to create an atmosphere where you feel welcome. And those of us who have been in this post for some time, we can offer you guidance, offer suggestions, and we can also learn from you as you embark upon this new phase of your career. The theme of this conference is judicial leadership in an ever-changing environment. It is in essence a continuation of the theme that began in the Cayman Islands in 2002 under the then Chief Justice, the Honorable Mr. Justice Smelly, Chief Justice retired. The theme of that conference was administering justice by the use of information technology, building on COVID-19 experiences. At that meeting, a number of resolutions were passed, and one of the important ones was to establish a relationship between the heads of governments and the heads of judiciaries in a more formal way. The idea being to create a forum for a meeting between the heads of government and heads of judiciaries to arrive at common solutions to tackling crime and other pressing regional issues intimately connected to the administration of justice. At this point, I pause to mention the Needham's Point Declaration that came out of a meeting in Barbados in 2023, and the meeting brought together, for the first time in the region, practitioners in the field of criminal justice. There were judges, prosecutors, police officers, defense counsel, probation officers, and civil society groups. This document was adopted by acclamation on October 20, 2023, at the Hilton Barbados Resort at Needham's Point, Bridgetown, Barbados. And it was held under the auspices of the Caribbean Court of Justice's Academy for Law, and it was the 7th Biennial Conference. Since that important document, it has featured in a number of important decisions from Belize and also from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, where for the first time it appears that judiciaries across the region are prepared to accept at least minimal standards when it comes to the administration of justice, and that is considered, at least by me, a very significant development. Within the last 2 years, there have been statements emanating from heads of government attacking the judiciary and what is perceived to be their softness concerning the issue of crime. Engaging in a shouting match with the executive is not necessarily the most productive way of addressing the issue. Rather, the development of an institutional framework, to which I referred earlier, where the heads of judiciaries can speak with the heads of government, would be more appropriate, and it has become increasingly necessary as all of us, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature, are jointly engaged in the business of governance. Framed in this way, it is a recognition that the judiciary and the executive and parliament are part of the governance structure. And while we are separate and have supremacy in our sphere, we are not separated in governance, and we must interact with each other to give and to produce effective governance for our peoples. As judiciaries, we assist in good governance by the interpretation and application of the Constitution and the general law. But we are doing so in a particular historical, social, economic, and political context. We are the inheritors of judiciaries that were rooted and grounded in the colonial experience of domination, oppression, slavery, and misogyny. This is part of our historical and social legacy, which we dare not ignore. But neither should we be trapped and imprisoned by that unsavory past. We, as modern heads of judiciaries, must see ourselves as transforming our judiciaries from instruments of oppression, instruments of colonialism, into institutions where all are respected, rights are respected, rules are enforced, and there is equality of opportunity and access to justice. The justice we deliver must be informed and advised by our historical and social context. All legal systems, if they are to be viable and respected and enjoy the trust and confidence of the people they serve, must be in contact with the pulse and feelings and mores of the country. Legal systems and the laws which we developed must reflect what is good and wholesome about our society and build upon those, and out of those will come the legal principles we apply to our day-to-day relationships. And when I speak of political context, I am not to be understood as saying we are to embrace political partisanship. Judiciaries are not partisan. As judiciaries, we need to understand that our executives and our parliaments are trying to rebuild societies that are emerging from colonialism and slavery. They are trying to build more just, equitable, and cohesive societies, the words coming from our Vision 2030 document. It is not surprising then that when you look across the region, a significant amount of legislation passed in the various countries are to address economic and social problems that citizens face in the particular country. In addition to that, the CARICOM region is part of a larger Caribbean and Latin American region, part of the hemispheric region, and part of the global community. We are members of the United Nations. We give effect to United Nations resolutions increasingly through legislation, for example, in areas relating to terrorism and terrorism financing. Matters of that nature are within the exclusive competence of the executive and parliament. And we as judiciaries, when we come to interpret such legislation, give effect to the will of parliament as indicated by the words used. So from that you will see that there is a symbiotic relationship between the judiciary, the executive, and the legislatures of the region. Significantly, judiciaries do not have the capacity to raise their own revenue. And in the context of revenue and budgets, there is an increasing recognition that judiciaries are accountable, but not necessarily in the way that politicians are. We do not have a system of elected judges, thankfully. How then do we internalize this idea of judicial accountability? And what are its practical manifestations? It begins with the recognition that judicial independence is not a shield or immunity from scrutiny from members of the public or even the legislature or interested parties. The concept of open justice, where our courts are open to all, whether to attend in person or to give access electronically, is one practical manifestation of that principle. The time has come for us to embrace fully the live broadcast of cases, criminal and civil trials, appropriate criminal cases, of course, and appeals as part of not just accountability, but public education. The proceedings of the Privy Council and the CCJ are available to members of the public, and so too should the proceedings of our courts, particularly our appellate courts. In trial courts, we may have a slightly different approach there. Yes, and while we may not be able to prevent persons from making mischief, what it will do is to provide real-time, reliable information to a substantial body of persons who can fill the space with accurate narratives based on information that they have received from an authoritative source. I fully appreciate that there is an increasing concern about security, but in addressing the security issue, we have to strike the appropriate balance between, on the one hand, security for the courts, the judges, the staff, and the court users, and on the other hand, the right of the public to enter any court at any time they feel to see what is happening inside and to report on anything that they may find, either positive or negative as the case may be. So we embrace the concept of judicial independence, which means that at its essential core, the irreducible core, the idea that judges are to make decisions uninfluenced by the executive, the legislature, and now we can perhaps say private sector interests, judicial colleagues, and extraneous considerations. Judicial independence, as we have come to recognize, is not an end in itself, but a means to an end, which is guaranteeing that citizens and litigants are sure that the judiciary is giving effect to the constitutional mandate of being a fair, independent, and impartial court, hearing and determining matters, criminal and civil and constitutional, within a reasonable time. However, we have seen that even when we as leaders and members of the judiciary are perceived by some as not taking seriously enough the concerns of delivering decisions within an acceptable time frame, eliminating and reducing backlog, using budgets efficiently, it provides a platform for political intervention that has happened in some of our territories, in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago through legislative action, in the Cooperative Republic of Guyana through legislative action, and in the case of Barbados through a constitutional amendment. Now, I'm not going to get onto the path, I call it the very dangerous path, of trying to debate whether the interventions of the executive and the legislature in those countries was justified or not. But what I will say is that we must not allow that type of encroachment to progress any further in the region. I think that an effective way of doing this is by judiciaries being more open about what our struggles are. the issues that we face, and what steps we are taking to solve them. For too long, we have tended to retreat behind the idea that the judiciary speaks only through judgments, and it does not speak about its processes, it does not speak about its difficulties, it rarely gives press conferences, it does not engage the media consistently. Thus, our issues are not properly ventilated, heard, or understood, so that whatever shortcomings we have can be placed in the right context. So to come back briefly to the establishment of the forum between the heads of government and heads of judiciaries that I have spoken about, regarding our reticence in communicating that we must overcome. The truth is, some heads of government really don't understand what happens in the judiciary and how it is run. Some of them have never even met a judge or have never even been to court. So how are they going to know unless we engage them in dialogue? So we must overcome our traditional reluctance and engage with the executive and the parliaments of the region. We must make it clear that while we engage in dialogue, it is not at the expense of judicial independence. And judicial independence in this context immediately now has an expanded idea of financial and administrative independence in all respects. So we need to tell our story in a way that is truthful, accurate, and identifies the successes that we have had while acknowledging the difficulties and failures and how we intend to overcome them. We need to speak more about things that we have done and accomplished, and these conferences provide that opportunity for us to think about these things. We need to let them know, and everyone know, that at the conference in Trinidad last year, November, under the theme, Moving Beyond the Familiar, Creating a Judiciary for the Modern World, we addressed issues such as artificial intelligence, its challenges, its opportunities. We spoke to issues such as judicial independence, beyond Bangalore and court administration, and we looked at the important issue of cybersecurity. So coming back to Article 3.1a of the Constitution, that is providing a forum for the promotion of fellowship, understanding, and functional cooperation for the enhancement of the administration of justice within the jurisdiction of each member state and associate states. Underlying this, the unarticulated premise is that it rests on leadership and management of the judiciary, which is what this particular conference will be focused on. Once we use the words administration of justice, we are inevitably speaking about people, processes, policies, procedures, a sine qua non for effective administration of justice. So in this conference, we'll be speaking about the role of leadership, particularly the leadership and management of judiciaries in the 21st century and beyond. We recognize that judges, by training, do not receive this kind of training in our 5 years of the study of law and throughout our careers. And so this causes us then to think that it's necessary to have institutions such as the recently established court services in the Bahamas and the court administration division in Jamaica, where you have professionals there who provide the necessary skills that will enable us to run our affairs efficiently and effectively as judiciaries. So the idea for this conference came from two sources. First is Justice Dennis Byron, former Chief Justice and President of the Court of Appeal of the OECS, and also former President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, and Sir Patrick Cheltenham, recently retired Chief Justice of Barbados. And both men expressed the view that it would have been helpful at the beginning of their tenure if they had some point of reference, some material to turn to, someone to speak to, who would assist them in dealing with, for example, in the case of Sir Patrick Cheltenham, spent his entire legal career in private practice, and then in his first few weeks in office, he was hearing about procurement laws, procurement rules, dealing with the Minister of Finance, dealing with the Financial Secretary, and having to engage all those processes. He did not have to think about that for the previous 50 years of his professional career. And so too, Sir Dennis. He said he received one of the most important lessons he received was when he met a financial secretary from the OECS who said to him, but President or Chief Justice, why do you think that you're the only constituent who is calling upon the Minister of Finance? There are several persons asking for money, so what is going to make you more special than anybody else? And so that was an important lesson for him. And so it is in that context that this conference was conceived. So I welcome you, my colleague, Chief Justices, all of us, to what I shall call the Byron and Cheltenham Chief Justices and Heads of Judiciaries Conference on Leadership in Kingston, Jamaica, June 19 to 22. It is my pleasure, colleagues, to welcome you, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. For those of you who are visiting for the first time, can I see a show of hands? So we're all Jamaicans. Welcome home. Once you've been here once, welcome, welcome. And I hope you feel at home here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I invite the Honorable Mr. Delroy Chuck, KC, MP, Minister of Justice, representing the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, ONPC MP, Prime Minister of Jamaica, to deliver his remarks. Please welcome him.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Delia Harris. I will adopt the protocol you so ably delivered earlier. Save an except to say, ladies and gentlemen, and esteemed heads of judiciaries. It is indeed with great pleasure that I bring remarks on behalf of the Prime Minister at the opening ceremony of this regional heads of judiciaries conference. This gathering holds significant importance under the theme, Leadership of the Judiciary in an Ever-Changing Environment. On behalf of the government and the people of Jamaica, I welcome visitors, perhaps even one, to our shores, and hope some spare time will be provided for you to see parts of this beautiful island. Take it from me, for those visitors, it is the most beautiful island in the Caribbean. The interesting thing is, even as a Jamaican, I am still discovering the beauty of Jamaica. And it only happens when visitors come here and I take them around to areas that they tell me about. So a couple of weeks ago, I went to the Black River Safari for the first time. Beautiful area. And then to Lover's Leap, which is really a lovely historical spot. No doubt, as you gather, you will share experiences, especially the challenges and issues encountered in your respective countries. In today's world, the role of judiciary leaders transcends traditional boundaries. You are not just stewards of justice, but architects of change, navigating through the complexities of a rapidly evolving landscape. Your decisions impact not only the present, but shape the future of our societies. The theme of this conference underscores the pivotal leadership required to navigate these turbulent times. We face unprecedented challenges, technological advancements, shifting societal expectations, and global interconnectedness, all of which demand innovative approaches and unwavering integrity. As leaders of your judiciaries, you're entrusted with upholding the rule of law, ensuring fairness, and protecting fundamental rights. Yet, to fulfill these duties effectively, you must adapt and evolve. You must embrace diversity, harness technology responsibly, and foster transparency and accountability in our institutions. Our government, like any responsible government, understands and is committed to the separation of powers. We respect the independence of the judiciary and uphold and respect the rule of law and decisions coming from our courts. Indeed, we can assert that neither the executive nor the legislature here in Jamaica has ever tried in any way to unduly influence the judiciary. With respect to salaries and compensation, it is determined and recommended by an independent commission. And certainly over the past 6 years or more, the country's resources have allowed the government to support the vast majority of its recommendations. Compensation for our judges has significantly improved, and this was borne out in the 2023 report of the Independent Commission for the Judiciary, Inquiry and Recommendations on the Adequacy of Salaries and Benefits for Judges. The recommendations for improved salaries and benefits for our judges were approved by Cabinet, and we can proudly state that the salaries of judges at all levels in Jamaica are competitive across the Caribbean. This commission is appointed every 3 years to look at the emoluments and benefits of our judges. It is true that the executive and the legislature have seen the need to introduce minimum mandatory sentences for some gun crimes and the offense of murder. And the legislation of minimum mandatory sentences is oftentimes seen as interfering in the discretion of judges in imposing sentences. Still, this action is in response to the numerous public outcries for severe punishment for these offenses, and in many ways intended to be a guide to the judiciary so that sentencing generally can be more consistent across different courts. In fact, complaints are rarely, if ever, made when legislation has maximum penalties. I think judges will acknowledge that sentencing is not a science, and guidance and recommendations are not usually unwelcomed. Our judges in the Caribbean will acknowledge and appreciate that as a part of the community of nations, we have seen new attacks such as cybercrimes, the use of technology to defraud financial institutions, also significant intrusions from fraudsters globally, and the ever-present drug and gun crimes. The Caribbean region is under siege from serious crimes often associated with the smuggling of drugs, guns, money laundering, and human trafficking. While the executive and legislature need to craft policies and laws to combat these crimes, the judiciary has to take judicial notice and send the right signal through its pronouncements and sentencing. The Jamaican government is committed to providing the courts and the prosecutors with the necessary tools to combat these crimes with the ultimate goal of bringing perpetrators to justice. A complementary approach in assisting the judiciary is to allow the courts to refer appropriate matters for mediation and other alternative justice services to resolve many of the less serious offenses. This approach has helped immensely in reducing the backlog of cases in our courts island-wide. Chief Justice Brian Sykes and his team must be commended for this remarkable achievement, and the Jamaican government stands ready to provide additional resources to make a further dent in disposing of cases on a timely basis. The judiciary is an equal arm of government and has been and will be further strengthened by the provision of significant resources and facilities for our judges to discharge their functions and duties properly and efficiently. Over the past 8 years, we have increased the number of judges at all levels, from 7 to 13 in the Court of Appeal, 30 to 42 in the Supreme Court, and 50 to 71 in the parish courts. As it now stands, we're about to enter into a bilateral agreement with the government of Rwanda, partnering with the company Synergy International Systems, to introduce technology for our court system to become paperless, thereby catapulting the operations of the court to world standards. This would be a game changer for the Jamaican courts and justice sector. We expect that this will cost somewhere in the region of $5 million United States dollars, or the equivalent of 780 million Jamaican dollars, for software and training over the next 2 years. The project is expected to start in this fiscal year. Additional funds will be spent for the acquisition of appropriate hardware. Many of our courts are quite old and being renovated. The Ministry of Justice is pursuing a program of building new courts where it is not feasible to renovate or refurbish. We have embarked on a public-private sector partnership to build new judicial court complexes and a new Supreme Court in downtown Kingston, hopefully within the near future. You laugh because I've been speaking about it for 5 years. We'll speak to the Permanent Secretary about procurement. Throughout this conference, I encourage each of you to engage wholeheartedly in discussions, share your insights and experiences, and collaborate on solutions that promote justice and uphold the principles we hold dear. Let us seize this opportunity to learn from one another, to inspire and be inspired, and to reaffirm our commitment to the service of justice. Together, we have the power to shape judiciaries that not only meet the challenges of today, but anticipate and prepare for those of tomorrow. Let us embark on this journey with courage, conviction, and a shared determination to lead your judiciaries in an ever-changing environment. Thank you, and may this conference be a catalyst for transformative leadership and enduring impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. And they'll be entertaining us this evening through dance and, of course, drumming. There's something special about one of the dancers, but I'm not going to tell you what it is until they're finished performing, and you're going to be amazed by what I have to tell you. But ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. Thank you so much. The Edna Manley College of the Visual and Now, I promised you a fun fact about one of the dancers. Edna Manley prides itself in being an inclusive community, and so our male dancer is deaf. Amazing, amazing. Thank you very much, Edna Manley. And of course, choreographer Paul Newman and Colleen, thank you so much for that. And I'm sure when we call them by many different names across the Caribbean, but many of our traditional forms are pretty much the same if we look at the root of what they are. And I'm sure many of our Caribbean visitors would have recognized some of those moves in our dances this evening. Very, very proud of Edna Manley College. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I invite the Honorable Mrs. Justice Marva MacDonald Bishop, CD, Judge of Appeal, to introduce our keynote speaker.
Madam Chairman, may I be permitted to adopt the established protocol and simply say, good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is no secret who our specially invited keynote speaker will be. A special welcome should have been extended to her by the Honorable Chief Justice, and I think the protocol that was established has recognized her. Now it is my pleasant task, and indeed a great honor, to make the formal introduction. Our keynote speaker, Senator the Honorable Dr. Dana Morris Dixon, is well known to the Judiciary of Jamaica and the Jamaican population at large. If you go on Google and you put in her name, you'll simply see at the top, public figure. Recognized as a public figure, therefore, she should need no introduction, especially to Jamaicans. However, for the benefit of our foreign delegates, I will proceed with the introduction. Just last year, Senator Morris Dixon was invited as a guest speaker at the Judiciary of Jamaica's annual retreat. There, she captivated the audience with her dynamic personality and compelling presentation. Her impressive performance has led the Judiciary of Jamaica to invite her again, this time on an even larger stage, to address this esteemed body of the Commonwealth, Caribbean Chief Justices and heads of judiciaries. Senator Dr. Morris Dixon is a minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, with responsibilities for information, skills, and digital transformation. She was appointed a senator and cabinet minister in May 2023. Senator Dr. Dixon is a 2004 Fulbright Scholar and an alumna of the University of the West Indies, that I will affectionately call UWI, where she earned a Bachelor of Science degree in economics with first-class honors and a Master of Science degree in government with distinction. She also holds a PhD in international studies from the Joseph Corbell School of International Studies and has completed the executive program at Harvard Business School. In her professional life, Senator Dr. Morris Dixon has excelled in academia, in the private sector, and the public sector. She began her career as an academic at the UWI, teaching various undergraduate and graduate courses. During her time at UWI, she also contributed to the Jamaica Economy Project, which led to the successful establishment of the Caribbean Policy Research Institute. As a senior executive at the Jamaica National Group, She managed numerous large-scale strategic projects in Jamaica and key diaspora markets in the United Kingdom, the United States of America, and the Cayman Islands. On secondment from the JN Group to the Bank of Jamaica, she successfully led the completion of the National Risk Assessment for Jamaica in 2021, a crucial component of Jamaica's anti-money laundering framework. Senator Dr. Dixon has also held senior public sector roles in the Office of the Prime Minister and JAMPRO. She's passionately committed to advancing women on boards and in politics, as well as the educational advancement of children in Jamaica. She has served on numerous boards and committees, too many to mention. A proud and devoted alumna of Campion College, she now serves on its board of directors. Despite her outstanding academic and professional achievements, she still finds time for love, family, and fun, being with her beloved husband, whose name I will not disclose, and daughters. Her selection as keynote speaker for this event attests to her brilliance, expertise, dedication, versatility, and approachability. As she will soon demonstrate, her mesmerizing personality and depth of knowledge packed into a small physical frame could easily earn her the moniker Little but Tallawa. Based on all the preceding facts and more that time does not permit me to disclose, I am confident that she is eminently qualified to deliver this keynote address, touching and concerning the vital issue of leadership in the judiciary in an ever-changing environment. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you Senator, the Honorable Dr. Dana Morris Dixon in all her splendor. Please join me in welcoming her with a resounding round of applause.
I don't really know how to speak after an introduction like that. I will just say thank you very much. Maybe you should be information minister. You're good at imparting information. I want to start by adopting the protocols that have already been established by our lovely MC, Miss Dahlia Harris, because it was a long list and there are a lot of people to acknowledge. I'd be acknowledging basically everyone in the room if I went through the list. But I have to say it's an honor to address such a distinguished gathering of legal luminaries from across the Caribbean. And today has been one of the more tricky days because I started my day very early this morning in Montego Bay doing our post-cabinet press conference, and then being a part of that conference and coming to Kingston and just getting a moment to stop at home to say hello to my children and then say bye, I have an event. They did ask where I was going. Well, one of them asked where I was going. The other one didn't really care that much, but the one who asked, I said, oh, I'm going to an event with judges. Why are you going to an event with judges? They invited me to speak. Why? And I said, because they want me to talk about their role in national development. And she says, but don't they just send people to jail? And I said, there's actually a little bit more to what judges actually do. And so I'm here really because our Chief Justice Brian Sykes invited me. And even before I came into government, I admired the work he was doing. He's an exemplary Jamaican. And when exemplary people ask you to participate in their event, you do your best to accommodate it. And so I am here because of that invitation that I got from him. So this afternoon we're gathered to give consideration to the indispensable and awesome role of the judiciary within our democratic charters and the essential relationship with the other branches of government. I will seek to explore how the courts significantly impact and drive national development. And for me, speaking to all of you was very interesting for me to think through what I would say this evening, because I'm in the executive, what do you say, the judiciary. I had to spend a little time thinking through what I was actually going to say. And some of the first part of what I will say is not necessarily for you. I am the Minister of Information. I do try to get information, and they do break up my speeches and deliver it to a different audience, a young audience, so that they can actually try to understand and engage with very important issues where sometimes we speak above them. So the first part is for them, and then I'll get more into things for you. So the judiciary, as an independent and impartial arbiter of the law and facts, is a cornerstone of our democratic societies. Now, everyone here, all of you, are entrusted with the solemn duty of upholding the rule of law, guaranteeing that equitable justice is accessible to all. Judicial independence is the bedrock upon which the credibility and functionality of the legal system rests. Without independence, the judiciary cannot be expected to render decisions that are fair, just, and free from external influence. This independence is more than merely a privilege of the court. Independence is a legitimate expectation of every citizen, assuring that justice is administered without personal prejudices. An independent judiciary is vital to maintaining public confidence in the justice system. Independence does not, however, imply isolation. Rather, it demands that judges make decisions free from external pressures and biases, guided solely by the law and the facts before them. The principle of separation of powers underpins the structures of democratic governance. It delineates the distinct roles and responsibilities of the executive, legislature, and judiciary, ensuring that power is not concentrated in any set of hands. Separation is designed to provide checks and balances, preventing abuses of power and safeguarding democratic freedoms. Your role here is magnified in parliamentary democracies as the and independent and dependent on each other for their existence. We know political science or legal systems 101. Parliaments make laws, the executive enforce the law, and the judiciary interprets the law. The reality, however, is far more complex. While each branch operates independently, they're definitely not isolated. No institution is immune to the influences of the other. This interdependence necessitates a collaborative approach to governance. Intrinsic judicial matters are in fact shaped by Parliament and the Cabinet. And Section 111 of the Jamaican Constitution, for example, appointed judicial selection body. The matter of Jamaica's court of last resort, for example, will be settled by the people through the democratic process, which is what our administration has said. And I saw some notes over there talking about did you know, which are beautiful facts, Chief Justice. I loved going through those. You know, did you know that the Chief Justice is appointed by the Governor General on the advice of the Prime Minister after consultation with the in our democratic process, an important role for the executive. We're connected even on operational levels. The court modernization projects that are so important all across the region are often supported by the cabinets and parliaments through funding, technical assistance, and policy support. And these are exemplars of the collaboration and cooperation that we see. And these projects are invariably products of inter-branch dialogue. Take the local electronic case doing in Jamaica. Chief Justice Sykes, he didn't have to do the diplomatic work that our Minister of Foreign Affairs did with Rwanda, but he did participate with the Ministry of Justice to identify and deploy the right e-tool for Jamaica. The ministry will not be implementing it, this new system, but it will allocate resources for its execution. This goes to show that reforms, though beneficial to society as a whole, must be conceived, driven, and implemented by structurally divergent arms of government. And so everybody has a part to play. And as I go on to speak about national development, you'll see why. As we consider the role of the judiciary within our democratic frameworks, it is critical to highlight your significant impact on national development. And we don't say it enough. As my daughter would say, you send people to jail. No, you have an important role to play in national development. The court's role extends beyond merely interpreting laws and resolving disputes. It is instrumental in fostering a stable and predictable legal environment that is conducive to economic growth and facilitative to social progress that we need in order to drive all national development. I posit that elected lawmakers, members of the political executive, civil servants, and yes, judges, all have a responsibility to national economic and social development. Again, all institutions have a role to play, and the courts are included in that. Take a look, for example, at the enforcing contracts indicator metric of the Doing Business report. And this is a report that many businesses around the world use to determine whether or not this is a good place 3 to 5 days to get their goods transported from anywhere in Jamaica to the port. But that was the response. And so the way we treated with it was actually working with those who respond to the questions to actually understand what the questions are asking and to give them information so that when they actually do respond, they had the right information in responding. But there were other metrics, though, that were really an equity. By adjudicating cases of discrimination, labor rights, and social welfare, you're in fact playing a part, I would say, in distributing welfare and impacting vulnerable populations. You protect everyone as the law lays out, even when the day's majority is not so inclined. You are vital in creating a more stable, just, and cohesive society. Locally, I believe the courts shape and drive our national development plan. Most of our countries have a national development plan. And I know that in order for us to achieve the goals of any national development plan, all of you would have to have a role to play there. In our Vision 2030 in Jamaica, which is our national development plan, we aim to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. The bench's efforts to improve access to justice, reduce case backlogs, and embrace technology to improve the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the legal systems aligns with Vision 2030's goals of good governance and sustainable development. Conversely, Vision 2030 impacts the judicial branch by setting clear expectations for judicial reforms and improvements in legal infrastructure. The plan emphasizes the need for a modern, responsive, and accountable court system capable of supporting national development objectives. I say to you, you are central to national development in every country in this region. And we believe this has led to increased investment in judicial training. I know for the executive, we are guided by our national development plan. And when you have a national development plan that very explicitly states that the judiciary has an important role to play in achieving economic development, that's where the money will go. And that's how we have that raison d'etre for the additional funds to be given to our courts. And so when we look in our Vision 2030, in our National Development Plan, we see specific metrics that are linked back ultimately to all of you here. As Vision 2030 progresses, judicial arm's commitment to upholding the rule of law and delivering timely justice is essential for achieving the plan's broader aspirations of social inclusion, economic prosperity, and environmental sustainability. I will also briefly mention the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. All of our countries have signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals. And Goal 16 is very, very instructive in terms of your role. Goal 16, which all countries have agreed to, is to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. So you're important in the National Development Plan. You're also important in the Sustainable Development Goals. And so when I say you are critical to national development, I really do mean it. Now, collaboration between the branches of government is therefore necessary to address the evolving challenges facing our societies. Issues such as transnational crime, environmental protection, and technological advancement require coordinated efforts and a coherent legal framework. In this regard, dialogue and cooperation between the courts, the parliament, and the cabinet can foster a more responsive and effective governance system. Though independent, you must still engage with stakeholders, including civil society, academia, and international organizations, to stay informed about emerging issues and best practices. Now, we have seen models of cooperation and collaboration at work in other national arenas and areas. Just recently, an all-of-government approach was deployed to meet the Financial Action Task Force recommendations. So as many of you know, Jamaica was placed on the grey list by the Financial Action Task Force because of concerns in relation to money laundering and terrorism financing, but it was more on the money laundering side. And that had a big impact. I remember right before COVID, I was based in the UK and working on a project there. And you know, I worked for a Jamaican company, and we had a European partner that was doing a lot of the technology work with us. And they were doing really well. And they suddenly said to me, "We can't take your payment next month. You have to provide a lot more information to the bank." And I said, "What has changed?" We went on the grey list. And so they had to do more due diligence against my company, which has been operating in the UK for over 30 years and has had partnerships with European companies for a long time. But that being on the grey list had an impact on us and our ability to do business in the way we had been doing it for a long time. And so when we talked about how we were going to fix this, we had to understand where were we going wrong. And as you heard earlier, I was seconded to the government, to the Bank of Jamaica, to do the National Risk Assessment for Jamaica. And in doing that National Risk Assessment, which was one of the things we needed to do in order to be able to start the process of coming off the grey list, I used a tool from the World Bank. And in that tool, it ranks you. It gives you your score at the end. What are you, high risk, low risk, and you do it by sector. And invariably, there were tons of variables that asked me for information on money laundering cases, how long it took for a case to be resolved, and whether or not that was in a timely manner. Those all went into the model. Those all helped to give the scores for Jamaica in terms of whether or not we are a high-risk environment for money laundering. And so when we sometimes, separate ourselves from some key issues, but we cannot always separate ourselves. And that was one where it was very clear that there was a role for the judiciary. And I take great pleasure in congratulating our Chief Justice on the remarkable achievements and significant strides made under his leadership over the past few years. These accomplishments are commendable, and they set a benchmark for judicial excellence across the Caribbean region. And I say that because even though I'm now in the executive, I still had a chance to, for example, meet with the Americas group that came to Jamaica, and they were doing their analysis of Jamaica and whether or not, we can come off of the gray list. And at a cocktail event, one of them came to me and said, "Your court system is absolutely fabulous." And they felt that what we've been able to achieve was beyond what they had seen in other jurisdictions that were much more developed than us. And so I have to say thank you to our Chief Justice for all that he has been doing, because it did have an impact. For them to just bring it up at cocktails and to say how impressed they were with Jamaica. I know, and we all keep our fingers crossed that at the end of the month we'll get good news, but we don't know yet. But I do know if we do come off of that list, it will be because of the work that you have done. And I know Chief Justice has led it, but it's all of you that have been able to do the work. And in that sense, if we look at the achievements, in September 2023, the parish courts were officially backlog-free in alignment with international standards. More surprising, and that's worth clapping. And that's why they were impressed. More surprisingly, this came 2 years ahead of schedule. Clearing the backlog of cases in the parish court significantly improves access to justice for all. And even if we don't recognize it in Jamaica, the international parties recognized how an important feat that was. The annual statistics report on court clearance rates underscores the impressive performance. In 2023, the case disposal rate stood at 74.47%, closely aligned with the rates from 2022 and 2021, which were 74.43% and 77.5% respectively. The case clearance rate in 2023 was an outstanding 106.61%, demonstrating the judiciary's ability to handle more cases than were filed, maintaining a consistent record. Trial date certainty rates, crucial for ensuring timely justice, were maintained at 75% in 2023, showing improvement from previous years. And furthermore, courtroom utilization rates also showed significant progress, reaching 65.72% in 2023, up from 59% in 2021. We were very proud to be able to put forward those statistics. And those statistics just didn't look good for you, it looked good for our country. And so I say, obviously, you are important to national development. And so these statistics reflect that the Jamaican bench, and it reflects the unwavering commitment to a clear all-of-government mission. And Chief Justice, again, your leadership and vision has been pivotal in driving these reforms, and we are better for it. So together, with the judiciary, with the private sector, with many entities in Jamaica, we've had to meet our FATF challenge, the Financial Action Task Force's challenge of getting off of the grey list. We had to work together. We had to implement many laws. We had to be able to demonstrate that we were actually prosecuting money laundering cases and they were being done appropriately. They even wanted to read what the cases were, and they wanted to see what the judgments were. That's how far it went in determining whether or not we had the right framework in Jamaica. Now, I believe that the next frontier is going to be artificial intelligence and technology, and I have responsibility for digital transformation, so there's no way I'm going to get up here and not talk about technology for even a little bit. Artificial intelligence holds the promise of transforming the judiciary adjudication, and the legal profession generally. AI can significantly assist in legal document drafting through natural language processing techniques. AI-powered platforms can also analyze vast volumes of legal documents, extracting relevant information to support legal arguments and opinions. This saves time and provides for well-reasoned, grounded, and comprehensive legal opinions. Artificial intelligence also aids in organizing and structuring legal opinions, maintaining consistency, and adapting to evolving legal landscapes. Large language models can be built on data sets exceeding human comprehension by orders of magnitude. Already, consumer AI tools can provide rudimentary legal information, ask questions about pieces of legislation, and a mostly accurate response will be generated. And we've been playing around with it, putting in some of our laws into ChatGPT and also into Bard and asking it questions. And it's been able to really give very good answers. And as it's trained, it can actually do much better. And so today I spoke in the press briefing about our new portal where we're going to have all our laws much more accessible and searchable for Jamaicans to be able to access it. What we want to do is to build on that and to also look at how we can incorporate some of these large language models and to be able to have someone just ask a question about a law and be able to get the answer and know where exactly in that law that answer is found. And so there is a lot of potential around artificial intelligence. AI is already becoming a powerful asset in many courts, and we've seen it especially in the US courts. In some state courts, algorithms analyze data to predict case outcomes and suggest sentences, providing valuable insights that can guide judicial decisions. And of course, as someone who's very big on the ethics of AI, I always have to talk about algorithms, and we have to be very careful as we use algorithms that we're not discriminating. And that is something that is very important, and we've seen it especially in the financial services space where algorithms can serve to disadvantage persons from particular socioeconomic backgrounds. And we do not want that to happen. And so it's very important that we interrogate any algorithms that we do use, but they are powerful and they can be useful. While artificial intelligence cannot replace human expertise and/or reasoning, it serves as a valuable collaborator, enabling legal professionals to work more efficiently and produce well-researched opinions. And I do look forward to working with our Chief Justice in looking at tools that we can use in AI, in setting the stage. I mean, you've already done so much with technology, and I know you're doing more. This is the next frontier, and I am very much looking forward to working with the Chief Justice in terms of how we can deploy AI tools in an ethical manner in your sphere. So the role of courts and your relationship with the other branches of government is very important to the health and stability of our democracies and our national development agendas. It is clear that we're standing at the cusp of a transformative era. Every institution will be touched by technology. The advances we have witnessed, from the efficient resolution of cases to the integration of technology, heralds a new era of justice. And you would have seen it. There was a QR code up for us to get the agenda. You are speaking my language. That's the language of today. Yet as we embrace these innovations, never forget the essence of the judicial mission: to uphold the rule of law, protect human rights, and secure justice for all. As custodians of justice and finders of facts, the judiciary stands at the intersection of tradition and transformation. So as our countries transform and evolve, the judiciary is an important component of that move forward. Again, the judiciary, though independent, does not sit in isolation, but must be an important component of our national development program. Developmental discussions cannot be the sole purview of the executive, but must include the judiciary.
All branches of government are a part of the governance framework of the country. We have to devise mechanisms to have more dialogue on the needs of our countries, as no branch can achieve governance alone, and the goals and aspirations of our people cannot be achieved without us all working together. I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to start engaging in dialogue on this very important matter of collaboration across the arms of government, while also maintaining independence, and also for us to discuss your critical role in national development and the development of our region. I know deeply that you will have fruitful discussions, especially because our Chief Justice will be leading. And so I know the discussions will be fruitful, and I ask you to please enjoy your time in Jamaica as you discuss how we can move our countries forward. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Morris Dixon, and for reminding us that justice isn't merely a legal or philosophical concept. It's the cornerstone of a functional and thriving society. It ensures that all members can live with dignity, security, and equal opportunity. And so we really are grateful as a region to the men and women who are gathered for this conference. It couldn't be a conference in Jamaica without some entertainment, though, could it? And so I invite the Silverbird Steel Orchestra to rejoin me on stage. And I say orchestra because their catalog is comprised of dancehall fusion, reggae, rhythm and blues, jazz, pop, and classical music. They've been doing this for over a decade. They're an award-winning band, World Championship of the Performing Arts gold medalists, and they have been performing over 3 continents, recently returned from China. And so in a minute, they're going to be joining me on stage, the Silverbird Steel Orchestra, and they will continue with entertainment for us this afternoon before we close today's proceedings. Once again, I want to thank all our speakers this afternoon for reinforcing why we're here and for giving us some serious food for thought. So in a minute, the Silverbird Steel Orchestra will join me on stage, and then we will have some entertainment. Barring that, I'm just going to have to give you a few more jokes, and I take serious as a judge very seriously. And I would not want my career as a comedian to end this afternoon because of this room. And so they are here, and in a minute you'll hear some more from them, ladies and gentlemen. Engelbert Steel Orchestra. Oh my gosh. So my grandmother would have said him nimble. And I know a lot of people, your hearts are in your chest. Guilty, right? Guilty. If you're guilty, put your hands up. That was an easy sentence for me. Guilty. I invite His Honor, Mr. Chester Crooks, Chief Judge of the Parish Courts, to present a token to our keynote speaker. Senator?
The Honorable Senator, I'm tempted to say her name out loud and full. It's such a lovely name. I know you have had a very busy day. First you had your obligation in Montego Bay. Then you had to stop at home to not only say hello to your lovely daughter, but also to consult with her on your presentation. And I must say, I think she summed up her role quite nicely. It's a bit arguable, but I do think sometimes we do have to send persons to jail in the interest of national development. Not a pleasant part of our job, but we do it anyway. I've had the privilege of being amongst a gathering that you have addressed. This is my third time. And honestly, I was saying to myself, I was looking forward to seeing if you could outdo yourself. And I think you have far exceeded my expectations. Having listened to that very formidable introduction, I must say it was flawless, near flawless. Just one thing was missing, 0.1%. Having heard your presentation, I think we can now add motivational speaker to it. I wish on behalf of my fellow judges, my fellow parish judges, and of course the whole judiciary, I wish we could have a printed copy of your speech on the bench. So, when those disheartening days come, we can just quickly glance and remember why we do what we do. And I'm just happy that Minister Chuck, who hitherto was clueless, was quite happy to hear what we do, and now he's very educated. I know he was preaching to the choir. But thank you for the privilege of your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for reminding us how important our roles are in terms of national development. And I think your daughter is one to watch. She's very perceptive. Please accept this on behalf of us all.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our opening ceremony for the Chief Justices and Heads of Judiciaries of the Caribbean Conference 2024. I believe we're off to a great start. And if this is any indication, I'm sure we will have a very successful conference. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. God bless you all. I'm Delia Harris. Thank you.